Hi and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a July wrap-up. I of course have help from my little ones, my little wee ones, Kate and Lucy, so they might pop up at any moment. This month, a lot of it was so hot. So I spent most of it, well, there's Kate, hello. I spent most of it laying in the pool, screaming over In the Dark, and starting Suits, which I'm absolutely obsessed with. But in between all that, I also read some books and I had a lot of feelings about all of them. The first book that I read this month was A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. This is the second book in the ACOTAR series. The first book, A Court of Thorns and Roses, was about a girl called Feyre, and she lived in poverty with her dad and her two sisters, and she was the sole provider because her family literally did nothing. And so one day she goes out hunting and she kills this wolf. Turns out it wasn't actually a wolf, it was a fae, and to kill fae is illegal. So this other fae, Tamlin, shows up and is like, hey, hi, you killed my friend. So I'm either gonna have to kill you or you're gonna come live with me in the spring court for the rest of your life, which Eternal Spring, what a nightmare. So she reluctantly decides, like, in order to spare her family, that she's gonna go live with Tamlin. And it's not great. It's not good because fae don't like human. They think that they're weak, and humans don't like fae because they think they're murderers. So you can imagine the tension in this household. She also meets this other fae, Reese, who is just supposed to be bad news, but she's very conflicted because everyone says he's bad news, but then he's always helping her. What are his motives? And so, yeah, so that was the first one. This is the second one. I gave this 5 stars. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. 5 screaming night court stars. This book was everything that I wanted it to be. It absolutely lived up to the hype. Reese. In case you didn't know, Reese is my favorite. Reese is my favorite. That sweet, deprecating, that sweet self-deprecating bat boy. Like, I'm in love. He was so, I loved everything about him. Everything about him. And I shipped the shit out of Reese and Feyre. Just absolutely, like, this was kind of my ideal, like, perfect book, like 700 pages of a slow burn. So good, so good. I hate Tamlin. I did not like him in the first book, and I feel very vindicated. I feel like I saw all those red flags because I absolutely hated him in this one. Like, there's no redeeming him. I will never forgive him. I hated him. But I loved, like, everybody else. Like, the entire Court of Dreams, loved them. Loved them. My girl Nesta, the little tidbits we got of her and Cassian, like, I loved it so much. But I love this. I love that Feyre, that they really showed the aftermath of the first book with Feyre, with her PTSD and the emotional abuse. I like that that wasn't something that was just resolved very quickly. Like, she went through it, okay? And I loved Reese and Feyre so much. I love that they both thought that they were so broken and they were just unlovable. And then they found each other and they're like, we can heal together. And I loved it so much. I'm absolutely gonna hate the third book based on the ending of this because my jaw was like on the floor, like, I know I'm gonna hate the third book, so I'm literally just like soaking up all the love from this one because it was so freaking good. I'm so obsessed. I finished it. I immediately looked up fics, bought all the merch. Like, I'm obsessed with this book. Right, Kate? We're obsessed. We're obsessed. The next book that I read this month was Half Sick of Shadows by Laura Sebastian. So this is based on Arthurian legend, which my knowledge of pretty much consisted of, like, that name sounds familiar. No idea what the story is. So this was about a girl called Elaine who lived in Camelot, and she was an oracle, so she could see the future. She had visions of the future. And because of that, because magic was illegal in Camelot, she very much like isolated. And one day she meets Morgana, who's Prince Arthur's half sister, and Morgana has magic. And so she's like, hey, you should come with me to this island where there are people like us, and we can just like get better at magic and like live our lives in peace. And Elaine's kind of reluctant at first, but ultimately she ends up joining Morgana on this island where they meet Arthur and Guinevere and Lancelot. And so the five of them grow up together, basically. They spend like 10 years on this island and they're like best friends. They have relationships, like Arthur and Guinevere are together and Lance and Elaine are together. And then one day, Arthur's dad dies, so the king dies. And so Arthur has to go back to Camelot to claim the throne. So they all go with him and go on this like journey to prove that Arthur is like the right guy for the throne. I gave this 2 stars. I hated it. I hated it so much. Like, I wanted to like it. There were very few moments that I did, but on the one hand, it did a really good job, and that's where the 2 stars come from, because it did a really good job of showing the position that Elaine was in, like constantly being bombarded with these visions of her friends, of her boyfriend, that were just terrible. Like, they were terrible. Very rarely did they show Elaine get a vision that was actually good. Like, these were terrible visions, like cheating, death, betrayal. And so Elaine was very skeptical and like hesitant to really commit to Lance because of the visions that she saw. She was hesitant to commit to her friendships. Like, she wanted to be friends with them, but she was constantly trying to like figure out a way to make sure that the visions she saw didn't come true, because they were just all terrible. So on the one hand, it did a really good job of putting you in Elaine's position. And on the other hand, it put you in a position where I didn't trust any of these characters, and therefore couldn't get to the point where I liked them. Like, I didn't trust them. I didn't like them. I wasn't invested in them because like these terrible things were going to happen. I didn't like any of the ships. Like, I didn't like Lance and Elaine because I was like, well, he's going to cheat on her. So why would I invest in that? And so like, it did such a good job of showing you how Elaine like went through life, but it also put you in that position. So it was like, I didn't care. Like, I didn't care about the characters. I didn't care about the ships, because it was just like, it was literally like the book told you over and over and over again, it's going to end badly. And you know me, like, I want a happy ending. I don't want a tragedy. I don't want you to tell me that it's a tragedy the entire time and then it end up be a tragedy. What? I got to the end of this book and I'm still not positive what happened to Arthur. Like, I really could not tell you. And at that point, I just did not care. I didn't care because I was not invested in any of these characters, because I knew from the start that there was going to be cheating, betrayal, death, like murder. I just didn't care. And it never got to any of that. Like, we never actually got to that point in the book where that happened. It was just like, oh, this is going to happen. And then it ended. And I was like, I did not like it. Did not like this at all. The next book that I read this month was Glass Sword by Victoria Aveyard. This is the second book in the Red Queen series. I read Red Queen last month. That was about a girl called Mare who lives in a world of silvers and reds. And silvers are people who bleed silver, and they also have special abilities, so they can control like wind, water, lightning. They have super strength, stuff like that. And because of this, they consider themselves gods and basically think that they have the right to reign over reds, who are just like normal humans who bleed red. And so Mare is a red, and she lives in terrible living conditions, and reds have to join the army when they're 18. And Mare doesn't want to do that because it's basically like certain death. So one day she meets this guy, Cal, who offers to get her a job at the palace. And she's so excited because she thinks that this is, you know, what's going to turn around her life. She thinks maybe she'll be able to get jobs for like the rest of her family and her best friend Kalorn so that she can spare them from also having to go to war. But when she gets there to work as a servant, she finds out that Cal is not a red, he's actually a silver, and he's a prince, like he's the next in line for the throne. And she also finds out that she herself has special abilities, which is just completely unheard of because she's a red. And so because of that, the queen doesn't want to mess with the power structure, because if reds found out they could have abilities, that could change things. So she basically blackmails Mare into saying that she was a silver and didn't know it. And they betroth her to Maven, who is Cal's younger half brother. And she's got to put up this whole farce. So that was the first one. This is the second one. I gave this one 4 stars. I really liked it. I really liked the group dynamic of it because you had like Mare, Cal, Kalorn, and then Farley and Shade. And I really liked it. I like when you follow like one person in a group so you know everything that's happening. But I thought they also did a really good job of having a love triangle, which I hate, but not doing it in a way that was ridiculous. So it wasn't like Mare was constantly torn between Kalorn and Cal. It was more like Kalorn liked her and she did not feel the same way. And she was more torn with Cal on whether or not she should act on her feelings. So it was a love triangle, but it wasn't really, and I liked that. I was like, oh, bless, because I could not have handled it if the whole book had been like Mare debating on whether she should be with Cal or Kalorn. No, thank you. And thankfully it was not. This book was a roller coaster of emotions, okay? First of all, I hate Maven. I hate Maven. He's vile. He's disgusting. Like the things that he did in this, I just want to be like, Maven, women are not property to be branded and leashed. Like what? I literally got to the end of this book and I was like, he did what now? What? Am I excited for the third book? No, I am not. I am not. Based on the ending of this, no, I am not, but I loved this. I really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed that. Oh, it was heartbreaking to see just Mare constantly think that Cal was gonna leave her, and that she was gonna have to do this alone because that's how she's always kind of been. And she just felt alone with the fact that she had these abilities. And it was so good. And then to see to see that the betrayal of the first book really had like ramifications and effects of the people in this. Like, I just love that. I love when things like carry over, because a lot of the time books don't do that. So I really enjoyed that this had that. But yeah, I was crying. My jaw was on the floor. Like, this was a lot. This was a lot. And I'm scared for the next book. And the last book that I read this month was Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So this is about 4 siblings whose father was one of Evelyn Hugo's husbands, and like one of the terrible ones. I hate Mick. So this is about the 4 siblings, and the book basically goes through this day. So it tells you like right up front, there's gonna be a fire in Malibu. It's gonna burn Malibu down. And so the whole book is like basically counting down by the hour, following these 4 siblings leading up to this party that they throw every summer. And then ultimately this fire that's going to burn down Malibu. And throughout, they kind of flash back to the past of like how their parents met and how they came to be. And Kate, come on, lay down. Come on. Good girl. And how they came to be. And yeah. I gave this book 4 stars. It was interesting. On the one hand, I absolutely loved Nina. I felt the oldest character character, the oldest daughter of the 4 siblings. I absolutely loved Nina. I felt like she was very relatable in that she was used to accepting less than she deserved because she didn't want to make waves, which was kind of funny because she was a surfer. But she was just like, rather than like speak up or have a confrontation with people, she just kind of accepted whatever. She accepted crap. Let's be honest. She accepted crap. And I just found her so relatable. I absolutely loved her. I liked her siblings. I found them all super interesting. Their dad, Mick, is an actual piece of shit. Like, he's terrible. He's terrible. Like, oh my gosh, I literally wished for his death the entire book. That's how bad he was. But I gave this book 4 stars because 1, there are no ships. Like, if that was a thing, no, there are no ships whatsoever at all. There was not one single couple in this that I rooted for at all. Most of the men were pretty terrible. Mick, terrible. Brandon, Nina's husband, freaking terrible. But I gave it 4 stars ultimately because I found it was incredibly anticlimactic. Just the whole time you're leading up to this fire, right? This fire that's supposed to like burn down Malibu. And so the whole time I'm thinking like, people are gonna be at this party when the fire breaks out and it's gonna trap people and like, it's gonna be like this race to survive and it's gonna like, there's gonna be death, there's gonna be destruction. No, there surely was not. And towards the end of the book, once the party started going, they randomly basically like gave us characters that we'd never met up until then and like their life story and what they were doing at this party and how this party and I was like, I don't care. Like, unless they are victims of this fire, why do I care about this? And then turns out, no, they were not victims of this fire. Because like I said, like literally nothing happens. So I was like, why did we waste all this time on this? Like the whole time I was reading these random people, I was like, but when can we get back to like the 4 freaking characters that we've been following for this entire book? Like, there was so much like potential of these characters where we could like follow and we're like following these random people at this party that I could not care less about. What? And then you get to the end and I was like, oh my gosh, like I want to know what happens with Nina. Like, does she go here? Like, who does she end up, Kit? I want to know more about Kit. Like, there were so many avenues that this book could go with these characters. Like, there could be more. And I find out that the next book is about Carrie Soto. What? I literally had that on my like want to read list because I was like, oh, I love this author. I'm going to read this. And then I found out who Carrie Soto was in this book. And I was like, why would I want to read her? Why would I want to read a book about her? I immediately deleted it. I was like, no, I don't care. I don't care what happens with Carrie. Especially the way this book ended. I was like, really? Like, I just don't care. I know that would be a hate read for me, so I'm not even gonna bother. But yeah, I loved Nina. Like, I really, really loved Nina as a character. And this book was such a quick read and it was so entertaining, but it was anticlimactic as hell. Like, literally, like, nothing happens. Like, they make such a big deal about this fire and like, no, this was not even close to being as good as Daisy and Evelyn. It wasn't bad, like it was not a bad book, but it was nowhere, like no. Daisy Jones is still at the top of my list in terms of the best ones, so yeah. Anyway, those are all the books that I read for July. They were pretty good. Aside from one of them, I really enjoyed most of the ones that I read. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Will the girls get up and say hello? Oh, hello. Did she stop the video as she got up? Yes, she did. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. And if you'd like to subscribe, please do. And I'll see you in the next video. Say bye, girls, without turning off the video.